The consequences of not working safe, improper chain lining. I want you to think for a moment about what happens when we don't take chain lining seriously. Not about policies or procedures, just the real human consequences. A dropped object is more than just a mistake. It's an injury waiting to happen. A falling scaffold tube, plank, or tool doesn't just hit the ground. It can strike a coworker below, causing broken bones, head trauma, or worse. A single misstep in handling materials could be the difference between someone walking away or never walking again. Uncontrolled material movement means danger in every direction. If something swings unexpectedly, it can crush fingers, smash into faces, or knock workers off balance. There is no warning when a load suddenly shifts. It just happens. And when it does, the damage is instant. If you're standing below and something falls, you might not get a second chance. Every time materials are moved, workers below are at risk of being hit. If you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, no hard hat in the world will save you from a falling scaffold tube. Falling material doesn't just hurt people. It destroys equipment and structures. A misplaced load can break scaffolding, damage tools, or weaken the platform you're working on. When that happens, the risk of a total collapse increases, putting everyone in danger. If you're in the line of fire, you might not see it coming. Standing in the wrong place during chain lining puts you directly in harm's way. The problem is, you often don't realize it until it's too late. One wrong move from someone above you, and you're the one taking the hit. And when communication fails, everything gets worse. A material handoff without clear confirmation? That's how people lose their grip. A rushed transfer? That's how materials drop. One missed signal? One assumption? One moment of distraction? Any of these can turn a routine task into a disaster. These aren't just possibilities. They're real hazards that have injured and even killed workers in this industry. Chain lining isn't just another part of the job. It's one of the most dangerous things we do. If we don't work safe, the consequences are severe. And they don't just affect us. They affect our families, our team, and everyone who counts on us to come home in one piece. The risk is real. And so are the consequences.
Las consecuencias de no trabajar de forma segura. Encadenamiento incorrecto. Quiero que piensen por un momento en lo que pasa cuando no tomamos en serio el encadenamiento de materiales. No estoy hablando de reglas o procedimientos, sino de las consecuencias reales para las personas. Un objeto que cae no es solo un error, es una lesión esperando ocurrir. Un tubo de andamio, una tabla o una herramienta que cae no solo golpea el suelo, puede impactar a un compañero de trabajo abajo, causando huesos rotos, traumatismos en la cabeza o algo peor. Un solo descuido al manipular materiales puede ser la diferencia entre que alguien salga caminando o no vuelva a caminar nunca más. El movimiento incontrolado del material significa peligro en todas direcciones. Si algo se mueve de forma inesperada, puede aplastar dedos, golpear caras o hacer que un trabajador pierda el equilibrio. No hay advertencia cuando una carga se desliza de repente. Simplemente ocurre, y cuando lo hace, el daño es inmediato. Si estás debajo y algo cae, puede que no tengas una segunda oportunidad. Cada vez que se mueven materiales, los trabajadores abajo corren el riesgo de ser golpeados. Si estás en el lugar equivocado en el momento equivocado, ningún casco podrá salvarte de un tubo de andamio cayendo desde arriba. Los materiales que caen no solo lastiman a las personas, también destruyen equipos y estructuras. Una carga mal colocada puede romper el andamio, dañar herramientas o debilitar la plataforma en la que estás trabajando. Cuando eso sucede, el riesgo de un colapso total aumenta, poniendo a todos en peligro. Si estás en la línea de fuego, es posible que no lo veas venir. Estar mal posicionado durante el encadenamiento te pone directamente en riesgo. El problema es que muchas veces no te das cuenta hasta que es demasiado tarde. Un mal movimiento de alguien arriba y eres tú quien recibe el impacto. Y cuando la comunicación falla, todo se vuelve más peligroso. Un pase de material sin confirmación clara es como alguien pierde el control de una carga. Un traspaso apresurado es como los materiales caen. Una señal perdida, un malentendido o un segundo de distracción pueden convertir una tarea de rutina en una tragedia. Estas no son solo posibilidades, son peligros reales que han lesionado e incluso matado a trabajadores en esta industria. El encadenamiento no es solo otra parte del trabajo, es una de las actividades más peligrosas que hacemos. Si no trabajamos de forma segura, las consecuencias son graves y no solo nos afectan a nosotros. Afectan a nuestras familias, a nuestro equipo y a todos los que esperan que regresemos a casa sanos y salvos. El riesgo es real y también lo son las consecuencias.
Everything about Anil's unsafe behavior happened exactly as I have described. Almost. He stopped to take the phone call. He continued working using one hand. He got a bit agitated with the call. I survived a horrific accident, but paid a terrible price. Apart from the injuries which disabled me for life, I lost my income, my freedom, and I couldn't even get compensation. It was found that Anil had placed himself and others at risk by working in an unsafe manner, despite having been given clear safety instructions the very morning of the accident.
reality of dropped object hazards, a lesson we cannot ignore. I want to tell you about an incident that happened in August 2022 at the Phillips 66 refinery in Lake Charles, Texas. A scaffolder named Jose Valdivia was doing his job, just like we do every day, when a 20-pound metal bar fell from above and struck him on the head. The object wasn't dropped by accident. It fell because of a co-worker's unsafe actions. One mistake, one moment of carelessness, and Jose's life changed forever. Despite wearing all the required personal protective equipment, including a hard hat, the impact caused severe life-changing injuries. The force of the blow damaged his spinal cord and brain, leaving him paralyzed and unable to speak properly. A man who once worked with his hands, moved freely, and lived his life independently now requires full-time medical care. His family, his co-workers, and everyone who cared about him now live with the consequences of a mistake that should never have happened. For us, this is more than just a tragic story. This is a warning. It's a reminder that a single dropped object can permanently change or end someone's life. As scaffold workers, we cannot afford to cut corners. Every tool must be tethered. Every object must be secured. Every person must maintain full situational awareness at all times. What happened to Jose should never happen to anyone else, but it will, unless we take responsibility for our safety and the safety of those around us. No job is worth a life. No shortcut is worth someone's future. We owe it to ourselves, our coworkers, and our families to work smart, work safe, and never take safety for granted.
La realidad del peligro de objetos caídos, una lección que no podemos ignorar. Quiero contarles sobre un incidente que ocurrió en agosto de 2022 en la refinería Phillips 66 en Lake Charles, Texas. Un andamiero llamado José Valdivia estaba trabajando, como lo hacemos todos los días, cuando una barra metálica de 20 libras cayó desde arriba y lo golpeó en la cabeza. No fue un accidente inevitable, sino el resultado de las acciones inseguras de un compañero de trabajo. Un solo error, un momento de descuido, y la vida de José cambió para siempre. A pesar de llevar el equipo de protección personal, EPP, adecuado, incluyendo su casco de seguridad, el impacto le causó lesiones graves y permanentes. El golpe dañó su columna vertebral y su cerebro, dejándolo paralizado e incapaz de hablar correctamente. Un hombre que trabajaba con sus manos, que se movía libremente y llevaba una vida independiente, ahora necesita atención médica las 24 horas del día. Su familia, sus compañeros y todas las personas que lo conocían ahora viven con las consecuencias de un error que nunca debió ocurrir. Para nosotros esto no es solo una historia trágica, es una advertencia. Nos recuerda que un solo objeto caído puede cambiar o terminar la vida de alguien en un instante. Como andamieros, no podemos permitirnos tomar atajos. Cada herramienta debe estar amarrada. Cada objeto debe estar asegurado. Todos debemos mantener plena conciencia de nuestro entorno en todo momento. Lo que le pasó a José no debe volver a sucederle a nadie más, pero seguirá ocurriendo si no asumimos la responsabilidad de nuestra seguridad y la de quienes nos rodean. Ningún trabajo vale una vida. Ningún atajo justifica perder el futuro de alguien. Nos debemos a nosotros mismos, a nuestros compañeros y a nuestras familias, trabajar con inteligencia, trabajar con seguridad y nunca dar la seguridad por sentada.
Safer alternatives to chain lining, choosing the right method for material handling. As your safety manager, my job is to make sure you go home at the end of the day in the same condition you arrived, safe, healthy, and uninjured. And one of the biggest ways we can protect ourselves is by prioritizing safer alternatives over chain lining whenever possible. Chain lining has risks. We've talked about what happens when things go wrong: dropped objects, uncontrolled movement, and serious injuries. The best way to prevent those hazards is to avoid chain lining altogether and use safer material handling methods instead. Cranes should always be the first choice when moving materials. A properly rigged and operated crane allows us to lift heavy loads safely, keeping workers out of harm's way and reducing manual strain. If a crane is available and practical, there is no reason to be passing material by hand up a scaffold. Powered hoists are another excellent option. These devices minimize manual handling risks, reducing strain on the body and allowing for more controlled, safer material movement. Whenever hoists are an option, we should be using them. Gin wheels provide an additional layer of safety by giving us controlled lifting and lowering. With a properly secured gin wheel and rope system, we can move material with precision, eliminating the need for workers to handle materials at height in an uncontrolled manner. The fewer chain lines we set up, the safer the job becomes. Every time we eliminate a chain line, we reduce the chance of a dropped object. We take away the risk of something slipping through someone's hands, bouncing unpredictably, or striking a worker below. But I understand that sometimes, despite our best efforts, chain lining is necessary. When that happens, we follow strict safety protocols. No exceptions. That means proper communication, safe positioning, clear handoffs, and complete focus on the task. At the end of the day, our goal isn't just to get the job done, it's to get it done safely. That starts with making the right choices, using the right equipment, and eliminating unnecessary risks. If there is a safer way to move material, we use it. If we must chain line, we do it the right way.
Alternativas más seguras al encadenamiento. Elegir el método correcto para el manejo de materiales. Como su gerente de seguridad, mi prioridad es que todos ustedes regresen a casa sanos y salvos al final del día. Y una de las mejores maneras de lograrlo es priorizando alternativas más seguras en lugar del encadenamiento de materiales siempre que sea posible. El encadenamiento tiene riesgos. Ya hablamos de lo que pasa cuando algo sale mal. Objetos caídos, movimiento incontrolado y lesiones graves. La mejor manera de evitar esos peligros es no encadenar y usar métodos más seguros para mover el material. Las grúas deben ser la primera opción para mover materiales. Una grúa bien operada permite levantar cargas pesadas sin exponer a los trabajadores al peligro, reduciendo el esfuerzo físico y el riesgo de accidentes. Si hay una grúa disponible y es viable, no hay razón para estar pasando material a mano en un andamio. Los polipastos eléctricos son otra opción excelente. Estos dispositivos minimizan el esfuerzo manual y permiten un movimiento de materiales más seguro y controlado. Siempre que podamos usar un polipasto, debemos aprovecharlo. Las poleas de jeans son una herramienta segura para levantar y bajar materiales con control. Cuando se instalan y usan correctamente, permiten mover materiales de manera precisa, sin necesidad de que los trabajadores los manipulen en altura sin control. Mientras menos encadenamientos realicemos, más seguro será el trabajo. Cada vez que eliminamos un encadenamiento, reducimos la posibilidad de que un objeto caiga. Se elimina el riesgo de que algo se resbale de las manos, rebote de manera impredecible o golpee a un compañero de trabajo. Pero sé que hay momentos en los que, a pesar de nuestros mejores esfuerzos, el encadenamiento es necesario. Cuando eso ocurre, seguimos protocolos de seguridad estrictos, sin excepciones. Esto significa mantener una comunicación clara, posicionarnos de manera segura, hacer entregas controladas y estar completamente concentrados en la tarea. Al final del día, nuestro objetivo no es solo terminar el trabajo, sino hacerlo de manera segura. Esto comienza con tomar las decisiones correctas, usar el equipo adecuado y eliminar riesgos innecesarios. Si hay una forma más segura de mover el material, la usamos. Y si debemos encadenar, lo hacemos bien y con seguridad.
Y luego aquel. Este lado y luego aquel. Tira las plancas, luego se baja para abajo. Estamos barras.
Let's take a moment to walk through this picture and talk about what proper chain lining looks like when it's done safely and correctly. First, you'll notice that the scaffold materials are being passed diagonally from one level to the next. This helps maintain safe spacing between workers and reduces the chance of materials being dropped straight down the structure. Each level is staggered. This is important because it keeps workers out of the direct line of fire. No one is standing directly under another person, which minimizes the risk of injury if something is accidentally dropped. You'll also see that a plank has been removed to allow material to be passed between decks. This is a controlled setup. By removing the plank intentionally, workers avoid leaning over or twisting awkwardly, which helps prevent strain and accidents during the transfer. Handrails and overhead protection are in place. These are critical for fall prevention and for protecting the levels below from falling objects. This shows a job site that's set up with safety as a priority. On the ground, the competent person or foreman is overseeing the chain line. Their job is to supervise, stop the work if anything unsafe is observed, and ensure that everyone follows proper procedures. You'll also notice that no one is standing directly under the scaffold. People on the ground are staying clear of the line of fire. This image is a great example of what right looks like. Chain lining can be done safely, but only when it's planned, supervised, and executed with discipline. Every one of these elements, staggered positions, removed planks, secured railings, competent supervision, plays a role in keeping our team safe.
Tomemos un momento para analizar esta imagen y hablar sobre cómo se ve un encadenamiento de materiales cuando se realiza de manera segura y correcta. Primero, pueden ver que los materiales del andamio se están pasando en forma diagonal de un nivel al siguiente. Esto ayuda a mantener una distancia segura entre los trabajadores y reduce la posibilidad de que el material se caiga directamente hacia abajo. Cada nivel está escalonado. Esto es importante porque evita que los trabajadores estén directamente uno debajo del otro, minimizando así el riesgo de lesiones si algo llega a caerse. También se ha retirado una tabla para permitir el paso del material entre las plataformas. Esto se hace de manera controlada. Al retirar intencionalmente la tabla, los trabajadores evitan tener que estirarse o torcerse, lo que ayuda a prevenir lesiones y accidentes durante la entrega. Hay barandales y protección superior instalados. Estos elementos son esenciales para prevenir caídas y proteger los niveles inferiores de objetos que pudieran caer. Esta imagen muestra un sitio de trabajo configurado con la seguridad como prioridad. En el suelo, la persona competente o capataz está supervisando el encadenamiento. Su trabajo es observar, detener el trabajo si nota algo inseguro y asegurarse de que todos sigan los procedimientos adecuados. También se puede notar que no hay nadie parado directamente debajo del andamio. Las personas en el suelo están fuera de la línea de fuego. Esta imagen es un excelente ejemplo de cómo se debe hacer el encadenamiento de forma segura. Sí se puede hacer, pero requiere planeación, supervisión y disciplina. Cada uno de estos elementos, posiciones escalonadas, tablas removidas, barandales instalados, supervisión competente, juega un papel importante para mantener a nuestro equipo seguro.
Pre-chainline safety meeting, setting the standard for a safe job. Before we start chainlining, we need to take a moment to do it the right way. That means holding a safety meeting first. No exceptions. Chainlining is one of the riskiest tasks we perform, and skipping this step puts everyone in danger. First, we review our communication signals and stop commands. If we don't have a clear system for communicating, mistakes happen, and mistakes in chainlining lead to dropped objects, injuries, or worse. Every worker must understand the verbal cues, hand signals, and the command to stop work if anything becomes unsafe. Next, we assign roles and confirm each worker's position in the chain line. There should be no confusion about where each person is stationed and what their responsibilities are. Poor positioning leads to line-of-fire hazards, uncontrolled movements, and unnecessary risks. We also identify the competent person in charge. This is the person responsible for overseeing the chain line, making real-time safety decisions, and stopping the work if any unsafe conditions arise. If you don't know who this person is, ask before we start. Everyone must understand the full chain line procedure before we begin. We don't assume people know what to do. We make sure of it. That means reviewing the step-by-step process, emphasizing safety expectations, and ensuring that every worker knows their role. Finally, we verify exactly how the material will be moved and passed. Is it secured? Do we have a safe handoff system? Are all hazards identified? These are questions that must be answered before the first piece of material is moved. This meeting is not a formality, it's a life-saving step. If we take 5 minutes to plan, we avoid injuries that could last a lifetime. We do not rush. We do not cut corners. We take control of our safety before we even touch the first piece of material.
Reunión de seguridad. Antes del encadenamiento, estableciendo un estándar de trabajo seguro. Antes de comenzar el encadenamiento, debemos tomarnos un momento para hacerlo de la manera correcta. Esto significa realizar una reunión de seguridad previa, sin excepciones. El encadenamiento es una de las tareas más riesgosas que realizamos y omitir esta reunión pone a todos en peligro. Primero, revisamos nuestras señales de comunicación y los comandos de alto. Si no tenemos un sistema claro para comunicarnos, ocurren errores, y los errores en el encadenamiento pueden provocar la caída de objetos, lesiones graves o algo peor. Todos los trabajadores deben comprender las señales verbales, las señales con las manos y el comando para detener el trabajo si algo se vuelve inseguro. Luego, asignamos roles y confirmamos la posición de cada trabajador en la cadena de encadenamiento. No debe haber confusión sobre dónde está cada persona y cuáles son sus responsabilidades. Una mala ubicación puede provocar riesgos en la línea de fuego, movimientos incontrolados y peligros innecesarios. También identificamos a la persona competente a cargo. Esta persona es responsable de supervisar el encadenamiento, tomar decisiones de seguridad en tiempo real y detener el trabajo si surgen condiciones inseguras. Si no sabes quién es esta persona, pregunta antes de comenzar. Todos deben entender el procedimiento completo antes de empezar. No asumimos que la gente sabe qué hacer, nos aseguramos de ello. Esto significa repasar el proceso paso a paso, reforzar las expectativas de seguridad y asegurarnos de que cada trabajador conozca su rol. Finalmente, verificamos exactamente cómo se moverá y pasará el material. ¿Está asegurado? ¿Tenemos un sistema de entrega seguro? ¿Hemos identificado todos los riesgos? Estas son preguntas que deben responderse antes de mover la primera pieza de material. Esta reunión no es solo un trámite, es un paso que salva vidas. Si nos tomamos 5 minutos para planificar, evitamos lesiones que pueden durar toda la vida. No nos apresuramos, no tomamos atajos, nos aseguramos de nuestra seguridad antes de tocar el primer material.
Job setup, preparing for safe chain lining. Before we begin chain lining, we must take the time to set up the job safely. Chain lining is dangerous when not properly planned, and the best way to prevent accidents is by making sure everything is in place before the first piece of material is moved. First, we barricade the area to protect workers and pedestrians below. If an object falls, it can seriously injure or kill someone. By setting up barricades and exclusion zones, we keep unnecessary personnel out of harm's way. Next, we inspect all PPE before starting work. Hard hats, gloves, safety glasses, and harnesses must all be in proper condition. PPE is our last line of defense. If it fails, injuries become much worse. Overhead protection must be in place before work begins. Whether it's debris nets, tow boards, or overhead structures, we must minimize the risk of falling objects reaching the ground. One unsecured tool or loose material can cause serious injury. Tools and materials must be secured at all times. Loose materials create unnecessary hazards, and dropped objects are one of the biggest dangers in chain lining. Before we start, we ensure that every item is tied off, stacked safely, and positioned securely. Scaffold stability and workspace clearance must be confirmed. If the scaffold is unstable or the work area is cluttered, it puts everyone at risk. We check for secure footing, clear pathways, and a safe environment before handling any materials. Finally, the competent person must verify all setups before work begins. No work starts until the competent person has reviewed the setup, confirmed all safety measures, and given approval to proceed. If something isn't right, the job stops until it is corrected. This preparation is not optional, it is essential. Rushing into chain lining without a proper setup puts lives at risk. Taking a few extra minutes to check every detail can prevent serious injuries and ensure that we all go home safely. We do the job right, or we don't do it at all.
Preparación del trabajo. Asegurando un encadenamiento seguro. Antes de comenzar el encadenamiento, debemos tomarnos el tiempo para preparar el área de trabajo de manera segura. El encadenamiento puede ser extremadamente peligroso si no se planifica correctamente. Y la mejor forma de prevenir accidentes es asegurarnos de que todo esté en orden antes de mover el primer material. Primero, colocamos barricadas para proteger a los trabajadores y a los peatones debajo. Si un objeto cae, puede causar lesiones graves o incluso fatales. Al establecer barricadas y zonas de exclusión, evitamos que personas ajenas ingresen a áreas peligrosas. Luego, inspeccionamos todo el equipo de protección personal EPP antes de empezar. Los cascos, guantes, gafas de seguridad y arneses deben estar en buen estado. El EPP es nuestra última línea de defensa. Si falla, las lesiones pueden ser mucho más graves. Debe haber protección superior antes de iniciar el trabajo. Ya sean redes de seguridad, barandales o estructuras de protección, debemos asegurarnos de minimizar el riesgo de que objetos caigan y lleguen al suelo. Un material suelto o una herramienta sin asegurar pueden causar accidentes graves. Las herramientas y los materiales deben estar asegurados en todo momento. Los materiales mal apilados o sueltos crean riesgos innecesarios, y los objetos caídos son uno de los mayores peligros en el encadenamiento. Antes de empezar, debemos asegurarnos de que todo esté amarrado, almacenado de manera segura y en su lugar. También verificamos la estabilidad del andamio y el espacio de trabajo. Si el andamio no es estable o el área de trabajo está desordenada, todos corremos peligro. Antes de manipular cualquier material, confirmamos que el área esté despejada, que haya suficiente espacio para maniobrar y que los puntos de apoyo sean seguros. Finalmente, la persona competente debe verificar toda la instalación antes de comenzar. Ningún trabajo inicia hasta que la persona competente haya revisado la configuración, confirmado que todas las medidas de seguridad están en su lugar y dado la autorización para proceder. Si algo no está bien, el trabajo se detiene hasta que se corrija. Esta preparación no es opcional, es esencial. Iniciar un encadenamiento sin una preparación adecuada pone vidas en riesgo. Tomarnos unos minutos adicionales para revisar cada detalle puede prevenir lesiones graves y garantizar que todos volvamos a casa sanos y salvos. ¿Hacemos el trabajo bien o no lo hacemos? Proper chain line techniques. Ensuring a safe and controlled material transfer. Chain lining is one of the most hazardous tasks we perform, and the only way to do it safely is by following the proper techniques every single time. There is no room for shortcuts, rushing, or miscommunication when materials are being moved. First, we always use the twist-pull verbal method for material transfer. This ensures that every worker is fully aware of when a piece is being passed and prevents unexpected releases that could lead to dropped objects. Before letting go of any material, the sender must twist, pull, and confirm verbally that the receiver has control. We only move one piece of material at a time. Handling multiple pieces increases the risk of losing control, leading to dropped objects and serious injuries. One piece at a time means full focus, full control, and reduced risk. The chain line must be staggered to keep workers out of the line of fire. No worker should be directly beneath another, reducing the chance of someone being struck by falling or shifting materials. Proper positioning is critical to preventing avoidable injuries. Planks should be removed if needed to pass materials safely. If a plank obstructs the transfer, it can create unnecessary risk by forcing workers to stretch, lean, or make unsafe movements. Removing planks when necessary allows for a clear and controlled handoff. Clear and consistent communication must be maintained at all times. Every worker in the chain line must be fully engaged, aware of what's happening, and ready for the next move. Miscommunication leads to dropped materials, confusion, and accidents. Finally, the competent person must oversee all material handling. They are responsible for ensuring the proper techniques are followed, stopping work if necessary, and making sure the process remains safe from start to finish. If the competent person sees something unsafe, adjustments must be made immediately. Chain lining can be done safely, but only if everyone follows the proper techniques. These rules are not suggestions. They are life-saving measures that protect you, your co-workers, and everyone on site. Do it right every time.
Técnicas correctas de encadenamiento, asegurando un traslado seguro y controlado de materiales. El encadenamiento de materiales es una de las tareas más peligrosas que realizamos, y la única forma de hacerlo de manera segura es siguiendo las técnicas correctas en todo momento. No hay espacio para atajos, prisas o falta de comunicación cuando estamos moviendo material. Primero, siempre utilizamos el método de girotiro verbal para transferir materiales. Esto asegura que cada trabajador esté completamente consciente del momento en que se pasa una pieza y evita liberaciones inesperadas que pueden provocar la caída de objetos. Antes de soltar cualquier material, el trabajador que lo entrega debe girarlo, jalarlo y confirmar verbalmente que la otra persona tiene el control. Solo movemos una pieza de material a la vez. Manejar múltiples piezas a la vez aumenta el riesgo de perder el control, lo que puede resultar en objetos caídos y lesiones graves. Mover una pieza a la vez garantiza que el trabajador mantenga el control total y reduzca el riesgo de accidentes. El encadenamiento debe ser escalonado para mantener a los trabajadores fuera de la línea de fuego. Ningún trabajador debe estar directamente debajo de otro, ya que esto reduce la posibilidad de ser golpeado por materiales que caen o se deslizan. La correcta ubicación de cada trabajador es clave para prevenir lesiones evitables. Se deben retirar las tablas si es necesario para pasar los materiales de manera segura. Si una tabla obstruye el traspaso, puede crear un riesgo innecesario al obligar a los trabajadores a estirarse, inclinarse o hacer movimientos inseguros. Retirar las tablas cuando sea necesario permite una entrega más clara y controlada del material. Debe mantenerse una comunicación clara y constante en todo momento. Todos los trabajadores en la cadena deben estar completamente concentrados, conscientes de lo que sucede y listos para el siguiente movimiento. La falta de comunicación provoca caída de materiales, confusión y accidentes. Finalmente, la persona competente debe supervisar toda la manipulación de materiales. Es su responsabilidad asegurarse de que se sigan las técnicas adecuadas, detener el trabajo si es necesario y garantizar que el proceso se mantenga seguro desde el inicio hasta el final. Si la persona competente detecta algo inseguro, se deben hacer ajustes de inmediato. El encadenamiento puede realizarse de forma segura, pero solo si todos seguimos las técnicas correctas. Estas reglas no son sugerencias, son medidas que salvan vidas y protegen a cada trabajador en el sitio. Hazlo bien siempre.
Preventing fatigue, staying sharp and safe on the job. Fatigue is one of the most dangerous risks on a job site, especially during chain lining. When we are tired, we make mistakes, we lose focus, and we put ourselves and others in danger. A worker who is fatigued is far more likely to drop something, misjudge a movement, or fail to react in time to a hazard. That's why we must take steps to prevent fatigue before it becomes a problem. First, we rotate positions to prevent repetitive strain. Doing the same motion over and over wears out muscles and slows reaction time. By switching tasks or positions when possible, we reduce strain and keep our bodies and minds alert. Taking regular breaks is critical. Chain lining is physically demanding, and working through exhaustion only increases the risk of injury. Short scheduled breaks allow our muscles to recover and prevent fatigue from setting in too early. Drinking plenty of water is key to staying sharp. Dehydration leads to slower reaction times, dizziness, and poor decision-making. Staying hydrated keeps our minds clear and our bodies functioning properly. Checking in with each other is just as important as checking ourselves. Fatigue can creep up on us without realizing it. If you notice a coworker showing signs of exhaustion, slower movements, lack of focus, or struggling with tasks, speak up and make sure they take a break. A tired worker is a dangerous worker. Fatigue makes it far more likely for someone to drop a tool, misplace their footing, or overlook a critical step in the process. The best way to prevent accidents is to keep ourselves and our team well-rested, hydrated, and aware of our limits. We don't push through exhaustion just to get the job done faster. We work smart, we take care of our bodies, and we make sure everyone stays safe.
Prevención de la fatiga, manteniéndonos enfocados y seguros en el trabajo. La fatiga es uno de los riesgos más peligrosos en el sitio de trabajo, especialmente durante el encadenamiento. Cuando estamos cansados, cometemos errores, perdemos concentración y ponemos en riesgo nuestra seguridad y la de los demás. Un trabajador fatigado tiene más probabilidades de soltar algo, calcular mal un movimiento o reaccionar demasiado tarde ante un peligro. Por eso, debemos prevenir la fatiga antes de que se convierta en un problema. Primero, rotamos posiciones para evitar tensión repetitiva. Hacer el mismo movimiento una y otra vez desgasta los músculos y ralentiza el tiempo de reacción. Cambiar de tarea o de posición cuando sea posible reduce el esfuerzo y nos mantiene alertas física y mentalmente. Tomar descansos regulares es fundamental. El encadenamiento es físicamente exigente y trabajar sin descanso solo aumenta el riesgo de lesiones. Las pausas programadas permiten que nuestros músculos se recuperen y evitan que la fatiga aparezca demasiado pronto. Beber suficiente agua es clave para mantenernos alerta. La deshidratación provoca reflejos más lentos, mareos y malas decisiones. Mantenernos hidratados ayuda a que nuestro cuerpo y nuestra mente funcionen correctamente. Es importante estar al pendiente de los compañeros tanto como de nosotros mismos. Muchas veces, la fatiga aparece sin que nos demos cuenta. Si notas que un compañero se mueve más lento, pierde concentración o le cuesta realizar su tarea, díselo y asegúrate de que tome un descanso. Un trabajador cansado es un trabajador en peligro. La fatiga aumenta la probabilidad de que alguien deje caer una herramienta, pierda el equilibrio o pase por alto un paso importante en el proceso. La mejor manera de prevenir accidentes es asegurarnos de que nuestro equipo esté descansado, hidratado y consciente de sus límites. No trabajamos hasta la fatiga solo para terminar más rápido. Trabajamos con inteligencia, cuidamos nuestro cuerpo y nos aseguramos de que todos estén seguros.
In this training, you will learn how to properly perform scaffold chain lining operations. Failure to properly chain materials can result in dropped objects or physical overexertion, causing serious injuries. That is why mechanical means of passing is always the preferred method, although in some situations may not be feasible. In order to safely carry out chain lining operations, it is extremely important that pre-job planning, job setup, handling, and communication are done correctly. Handling and passing materials may seem like a straightforward task and something you've done many times before, but in order to complete the task safely, we will show you the proper techniques that have been developed and tested to work best and meet Brand Safeway's high standard of safety. Prior to any scaffold erection or dismantle job, a job safety plan, JSP, or other similar safe work plan will be performed and include all members of the crew involved in the task. Working together, the crew leaders and employees shall identify all hazards related to their work, with special emphasis on the proper setup and execution of the chain line used to pass materials. Be sure to discuss the specific responsibilities of each crew member. This step is crucial to minimize the risk of incidents and injuries. When determining how the chain line will be set up, give consideration to the experience level of each crew member. Stagger tenured employees and employees with less experience to create a safer and more efficient chain line. If you'll be working from or erecting a cantilever scaffold, ensure the cantilever scaffold section of the JSP is completed, and any additional steps that come along with work from cantilever scaffold are followed. A clear system of communication must be developed prior to chaining equipment. Before you begin, discuss the method of communication to be used to indicate when a crew member has control over a component. For example, the twisting method. You must also establish the best method of communication to be used to stop the chaining of equipment if the chain is moving too fast or in the event of an emergency. Depending on your work environment, this may include visual and verbal signals. Ensure each crew member is properly trained on the communication methods you'll be using before setting up the chain line. At the end of the meeting, every member of the crew must sign the JSP. All personnel involved in the chaining of materials must be protected from fall hazards 100% of the time. Workers at height involved in the chaining of materials also require 100% tie-off. Crew members must be equipped with the proper PPE or personal protective equipment according to the JSP. Give consideration to the appropriate type of gloves to be used based on the task and weather conditions, as well as which type of eye protection would be best suited for the work environment. When building a scaffold, barricade off the entire work area using high visibility barricade tape and attach tags to note the activity taking place, hazards inside the taped area, and the Brand Safeway contact name and number. As the build gets higher, ensure the area beneath the erection or dismantle operation is barricaded off large enough so that a dropped or deflected object cannot contact someone outside the work area. If there are staircases or ladders within the barricaded area, make sure they are blocked off with tape as well to prevent someone from mistakenly entering through these access points. Secure netting, plywood, or fencing on elevated work platforms to prevent dropped objects where equipment is staged or stored briefly. Whichever method being utilized must be adequate enough to prevent materials from falling. Confirm that all process-sensitive equipment is protected from items that could fall from above. When passing materials in a chain line, the working platform for the passing lanes must be a minimum of 18 inches wide, the equivalent of 2 planks or 1 Mac deck, or 20 inches wide if the work is taking place in California. Always ensure that the deck area where a material handler is standing is kept free of debris and other materials to allow for safe movement about the deck. When setting up a chain, position the crew in a staggered line so that no worker is directly above or below another worker. Pay special attention to the ground personnel. Ensure they're out of the line of fire or have overhead protection, for example, additional exclusion zones. Ask yourself, if an object were dropped, am I in the line of fire? If the answer to this question is yes, you need to adjust the chain line. For passing on scaffolds with either a narrow or wide configuration, remove the outermost plank of the deck area so that components can be passed inside the frame or bay. If passing inside the frame or bay is not practical because of the length of material, then passing on the outside of the frame or bay may be permitted after a plan has been discussed with the approved competent person. For narrow structures, workers can be placed in a vertical line and pass components inside the frame or bay. Workers still must be staggered front to back under a fully decked platform, minus one board or plank. However, this can only be done when there is 100% overhead protection and the employee is 100% tied off. It is important to keep your hands and head inside the structure and protected within the deck above at all times. Never extend your head outside of the structure to look above or rest any part of your body on the rails in the passing lane to prevent injuries from potential dropped objects. During chaining operations, a crew member should be positioned on each deck, or no greater than 7 feet apart. Do not double pass. All scaffold material must be passed hand to hand. Never toss, drop, or swing materials to another worker at any time. Always keep 2 hands on the material as you pass, and use hand-over-hand handling. Never allow materials to slide between your hands. You do not have full control when sliding material, and doing so could result in cuts from sharp edges or slivers and splinters from wooden planks. It is important not to hold scaffold components only by their connectors while passing. Not holding scaffold components by their connectors ensures you have both hands on the equipment, and the weight is evenly distributed, which allows for a better grip when passing materials. Never pass materials with attached components such as clamps still attached to braces. Holding components by their ends increases the weight of the material and affects your ability to pass the equipment safely. The same rule applies when passing wood or metal planks. An extra precaution should be taken. Wood planks can become excessively slick and heavy when wet, and metal plank surfaces can become slippery when wet or coated with contaminants. Use appropriate gloves in wet weather conditions when erecting, dismantling, or modifying scaffold. Always remove wire-exposed nails and any other sharp objects before chaining material. The chosen method to be used to indicate when a crew member has control of a component is the twisting method, along with the verbal shout. When receiving material in the chain line, always give a gentle twist to the scaffold material and confirm verbally, "I got it," to indicate you have control of the material. Only then should a crew member at the other end of the component let go. Tactile communication is imperative, as verbal communication by itself can be misconstrued by any person in the chain line, especially in noisy areas, resulting in a crew member releasing a component or part which could fall below. When building or removing scaffold while wearing respiratory protection, verbal communication cannot and must not be attempted. Utilize the twisting method with confirmation or tugging to ensure the safe passing of material. If using a rope to raise or lower components, always inspect ropes before usage. Use appropriate and approved hitches to hoist. Never tie on more than 2 ledgers, standards, or braces at any time. Bags should only be used for items that fit properly inside and should not be used for long scaffold components. Other safe practices include laying material down flat. Do not stand or lean scaffold materials. If there is an emergency and you must quickly evacuate the area, the material could be dislodged and fall, striking a person or damaging process-sensitive equipment. Leaning components can also fall and strike workers directly below or bounce off platforms to levels below. Make sure all material has been removed from scaffold decks or platforms before the crew takes break or lunch. Loose material can be shaken off decks while climbing up or down the ladders. Never store material above the toe board unless a hard barricade is in place to prevent material from falling. Remember, all intermediate decking used to pass equipment shall be removed at the completion of the scaffold erection. Never remove any scaffold material in areas other than those designated by the competent person without their approval, and use a pre-dismantle checklist where required by our policy. When dismantling a scaffold, always maintain control of the material. Your hand should remain on the material while being unfastened. Once material is removed, it will be passed down in an orderly fashion. The workers on the ground are to properly stage, stack, and rack components as they come down. When dismantling, never remove more material than can be passed down at one time, and do not stack materials on the deck, as they can easily be kicked off to the ground below. If material is coming down too fast, the chance of an incident is at its greatest point. Stop the chain using your predetermined communication method, and do not resume work until safe to do so. Remember that the chain line is only as good as its weakest link. Remember, if there is a delay at any point in the chain, it is important that workers ahead of the delay stop the work until the pace is recovered. Continually monitor the chain line for signs of fatigue. Using the predetermined method of communication, stop the chain and substitute workers where needed to prevent fatigue-related incidents or injuries. When available, utilize a chain line monitor to supervise passing. If at any point you see a worker performing a task that is unsafe or does not comply with the methods described in this video, it is your obligation to intervene. Stop the work immediately, notify a supervisor, and address and correct the situation. Once the issue is addressed, only then may work resume. To recap, start by meeting with your crew to prepare a JSP and identify hazards before beginning the work. Make sure everyone in the crew is equipped with the proper PPE and trained on the predetermined communication methods for passing and stopping the chain line. When setting up a chain, position the crew in a horizontal staggered line or a vertical line with 100% overhead protection. Always keep 2 hands on the material as you pass and use hand-over-hand handling. Use the twisting method along with verbal confirmation to indicate when a crew member has control of the component. If there is a delay at any point in the chain, stop the work until the pace is recovered. And if at any point you see something that is unsafe, stop the work immediately and notify a supervisor. Always keep it foremost in your mind that unsafe material handling practices have the potential to cause serious injury or even death. You must always remain focused on the passing task. Now that you've been trained on the safe chaining of materials, it is your duty to take what you've learned and apply it every time you're involved in material handling activities, because you own safety.